Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie. I cannot even remember the last time I did a wrap up. I want to start doing them regularly again, just because it's a video I love watching of other people's. Even if I've watched all their vlogs, I just want a little recap. But also sometimes when I find new creators, I binge all of their stuff. I look for their wrap ups. It's nice to know when in time they read something. I don't know. So we're doing it. This month I read 14 books. That's crazy. That is not like me. Usually in January I read a lot of books because I got that New Year's magic. But damn, Summerween, you helped me out a lot. I'm going to be listing these from the lowest to the highest rated just so we can leave on a good note. I think one time I did it from the highest to the lowest, and by the time I was finished with the video, I was like in a bummer mood. So lowest first. That being said, I read so many good books and only one of them's lower than a 3-star, and I think you know which one, so let's get into it. House of Beth, I rated this 2.5 stars, but she is an icon on this channel now. If you missed the Summerween vlogs, I read her on day 3, and then day 5, she attacked me spiritually. And so while I was a little frustrated reading this and a little bored, I've had so much fun with Beth, I will never give her away. And I really want other people to read this book so that I can get other opinions. I don't think I've heard one. Also, thank you for the publisher for giving me this copy. I'm sorry I didn't like it. This is a story about a woman who kind of abandons her life. She dumps her girlfriend, runs away from the city, quits her job, goes back to her hometown, and marries her childhood friend after like 2 months. She turns into a trad wife. The man that she marries, her childhood friend, I'm using quotes because like I still don't believe that they were ever friends. At least the narration didn't really show us too much of that. His wife died pretty recently, and our main character sort of becomes very interested in Beth. The flap says that soon Cassie, our main character, starts hearing a voice narrating the house's secrets. As she listens, the voice grows stronger, guiding Cassie down a path to uncover the truth about Beth's untimely death. The first chapter was very good. The first half was very slow, which usually I don't mind, but we got so much character in the first chapter, and then the character just turned off. It's like she was a vampire and she turned her humanity off. We just didn't get any insight into her thinking, her thought process, her feelings. It was just like she was a robot. It was very weird, but not in a fun way. It was just kind of like empty in a bad way. I'm sorry, I'm getting annoyed. The second half was much better, I will say that, and the fourth quarter of this book was the best by far, but it was too little too late, you know what I mean? There is such a fun thing that happens in the fourth quarter of this book that I cannot tell you because it's a complete spoiler, but oh my god, I just want a whole book of that. That was so cool and everything I would want to read in a book. And then the very ending, we got like bam, bam, bam plot kind of things when this was not a plot heavy book, and it just felt like a last ditch effort to make this interesting. Again though, I love what this turned into during Summerween. Beth is an icon. As much as I didn't enjoy this while reading it, she is forever in my heart. She's haunting me. Again, if you read that, please let me know all your thoughts, because it really could just be me. And that's to say for all of these books, okay? Next up, An Education in Malice. This is a Carmilla retelling. I rated it 3 stars. I think when I first read it, I rated it 3.5. I think she's going down, baby. She did go down in here though. Now, I say this is a Carmilla retelling because there are characters with the same names in here, and there are vampires in this book. Other than that, it has nothing to do with the Carmilla story. This book kicks off when a young woman named Laura starts at a university, and I think this is set in the late 60s, so that's kind of fun. She immediately sees Carmilla, who's another girl at this university. Carmilla's a senior, Laura, our main character, is a freshman, and I say main character, but Carmilla also gets a point of view. Anyway, Laura immediately wants to make Carmilla her bitch, like in a hot way. But then the next day they go to class and they start a rivalry. And that was the absolute best part of this book. If it kept going in that direction, I think I would have liked this a lot more. They're basically competing for their teacher's adoration. And the class itself is a, I guess, creative writing class, or maybe it's just strictly poetry class. So they're writing things, and Laura is writing all of her poetry surrounding Carmilla. She's like weaving her in the poems. Oh my God, I love that shit. I wish we got more of that. And then as the book goes on, you find out more about this teacher. We see Carmilla and Laura's relationship change. I don't want to give too much away, but I will say that I think this author had a lot of great ideas, but tried to go in too many directions, and as a result, things kind of fell flat. I also hate an academic book that doesn't focus on academics. I love academics in a book. Like, tell me their class schedule. We actually did get that on page 2, but then we never went to any of Laura's classes with her besides this poetry class. My least favorite thing about this, though, was that it felt like the author was writing this scene scene by scene and didn't make a very good effort of weaving them together. Some of them honestly didn't even feel like they were in chronological order. Carmilla and Laura would have a conversation and then never mention it again, even though it was kind of significant, at least in terms of if you were flirting with your rival. That being said, I couldn't put this down. It was very entertaining and I wanted to know what happened. Next up, I read One Golden Summer. This was my first ever buddy read for my Patreon, and I'm giving this a 3.5. And is that not crazy? Like, my third lowest rated book is a 3.5. This month was excellent. This is a romance book. It's kind of the sequel to Every Summer After, but you don't have to read this to read this. In fact, they do spoil the sort of twist in here for this book if you don't want to read this one. I will let you know that I had seen a spoiler review before I even read this book and then ended up giving it like a 4.5. So I don't think that would spoil your enjoyment at all if you do decide to read this after. Honestly, it made it better because I was like waiting for it to happen. In this book, we have Alice, who lives in Toronto, so she's a city girl, and then we have Charlie. He grew up in this beach town, but he also sometimes lives in Toronto. Alice is kind of a doormat, and I do like seeing an evolution from a doormat to a diva. So during the summer, Alice takes off of work for like 65 days. Can you imagine having that type of financial security? I could never. She ends up going to this lake town with her grandmother, who just had a hip injury. They had gone to this place back when Alice was 17, so they're trying to like replicate good feelings. And the entire plot of this book is that she meets Charlie and they have a romance. It's just a nice summer vibe. Charlie is very flirty and she is again reserved, but she's a secret flirt, and it was very fun to see them flirt. Charlie, oh my god, he made a great impression. Any love interest in a book that cooks for the main character, I'm a goner. I'm a goner. Sign me up. I love you, Charlie. However, he did get on my fucking nerves toward the end. They have very good chemistry. They're clearly attracted to each other, but Charlie keeps rejecting her. And at a certain point, I'm like, Alice, please, you need to let this man come to you because this is getting a little embarrassing. At one point, she goes to kiss him and he dodges her, like physically jolts back, and she falls into his chest. Oh, that was hard to recover from for me. I can't imagine. My absolute favorite part of this book was the third quarter of it. It was perfect. Summer vibes, summer activities, lots of flirting, lots of love. It was just dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. And then the last quarter of the book, I was over it. The back and forth, I was over it. I guess back and forth isn't a good description. The flip-flopping. That's a back and forth action though. Do you see why I said that? Ow, my head hurts now. But overall, I really enjoy this, and I do recommend for like a summer romance book. So much fun. Next up, Terror at the Gates. The first half of this book is 5 fucking stars. It's such a good romantasy book. It's action-packed, and that's not even something I usually like, but it was like every single night something crazy happened, and it wasn't just like for the sake of drama. It was high stakes, made logical sense, completely erupted everything back to back to back to back. It was so good. And the second half, I very much got frustrated with. So ultimately, I'm giving this a 3.5, but I honestly would reread this just for the first half. And I am going to be continuing on in the series. Our main character's name is Lilith, and she lives in Eden. There are like 5 districts. She's from the highest one, but right now she's living in the lowest district, which is like the sinful district. And as you can imagine by her name and the fact that they live in Eden, there's a lot of religious shit in here. And my god, my blood was boiling. Because in this fantasy world, all the women get powers, like actual magical abilities, and yet all the men are in charge. They can even siphon the powers from the women in their families. But it's even more than just magic that the men are controlling. Women aren't allowed to order their own food at a restaurant. I still can't believe that shit. They're not allowed to drive. They're not allowed to do shit without the permission from their fathers or their husbands. I cannot. Lilith is a rebel. She's trying to get away from her family. She hates the thought of having to marry someone just for him to get control of her. And her power is pretty cool. She can control lust in other people. If the lust gets to a certain height, she can almost like take it out of their body and then control them with it, like compel them like a vampire. This plot of the story surrounds a dagger, and she compels this lustful man to give it to her because she thinks she can pawn it for good money. And then people who touch it end up dying. Like blood starts squirting out of their eyeballs. It's pretty gross. Lilith touched it many times though, and nothing bad has happened to her. But like obviously something's wrong. So she ends up running to Zahariv, who is like the boss of the sinful district. And I say boss because this is kind of mafia romance. At least the setup is. I wish they leaned a little bit more into that, but maybe in the next few books they will. And the romance in this romantasy is between Lilith and Zahariv. he's sort of been a protector type of figure in her life, except she's always thought he was hot. And he's always acted very neutral toward her. She's never felt him like lustful for her with her powers. And I will say, I love this sort of slow burn in the first half, because upon the first time of the meeting, you can sense the tension, even though they've never acted on it. There's no like past timeline where they've hooked up or anything. It's just very good writing in the first half. What can I say? Second half just felt really aimless to me, and the romance turned from tension building into very mechanical, robotic love. I don't know. I think I'm alone in thinking this though, because everyone has been fucking loving this book, loving this romance, but it really let me down in the second half. It just felt like all the things we were building up toward just sort of fell flat. Again, I will be reading the second book, so maybe it'll get better, but either way, I'm gonna read it. Moving on to The Compound. I've seen a lot of differing opinions on this book, and I love that kind of story. I think when I first finished this for Summerween, I gave it a 3.5, and then it went up to a 3.75, and I think I'm gonna end at a 3.75. I was gonna say 4, but there are a couple things towards the second half that I'm like, eh. In this book, we're following a woman who's in a reality television show, and it's sort of a survival-y dating show. And the first half of this was wonderful, or at least part 1. I don't have the physical book in front of me, so I can't like flip through, but I remember part 1 being very long. The chapters very long, but I was riveted. I liked learning about this game. Again, my blood was boiling for the misogynistic, racist shit that was happening. I liked learning a little bit about all of these characters. There are like 19 contestants, and I loved seeing the dynamics between them, but also they were playing a game and being sneaky, and it's funny because this plot is something that I would usually avoid. I don't like reading about reality television. I don't like survivalist shit. If there's too many characters, sometimes I get overwhelmed. But that was the best part of this book, when everyone was in the game. As the book went on, we really focused a lot more on our main character, which makes sense. But it turned from like a group psychological study to a personal morality story that felt kind of lame. There was some action at the end, and then the very end, it kind of slowed down again, and that's what I loved, because it got back to like the psychology of our main character. We learned more and more about her as the story went on. You start realizing why she does some of the things she does, why she thinks some of the ways that she thinks. I find that endlessly fascinating. Humans, they're fucking fascinating, okay? And that's what I love the best about the first half, is that we got so many different types of people who were clearly raised so many different types of ways and had so many varying personalities, and to see them all like trying to work together but also compete with each other, I find that so cool as like an anthropological study. It was crazy though, because we were going from a minute by minute, day to day, almost slice of life vibe to people getting eliminated like off page. And it was people that I thought would really bring a lot of drama. So that was kind of sad that the pacing completely changed, that we went from a group to like an individual kind of thing. But I'm very glad I read this, because first of all, it's a good reminder of me to pick up books even if I don't think I'm gonna like them, because I could be endlessly fascinated by it. Now I won't be as hesitant to pick up reality television books. Also, this made me want to watch Love Island. And also, I think I'm on the lookout now for more group mentality type of stories. I don't even know how to search for that. If you have any idea what I'm talking about and you have recommendations, put them in the comments below, because there was just something about the first part of this book that I am so enamored by. Next up, Her Many Faces. And this is so great, because a lot of the books I've been reading this year, the first half is 5 stars and the second half is like 2 stars, and I get really sad and disappointed. This was the exact opposite. It started off, I was kind of bored. It was giving very basic 3-star energy, and then the more I invested into it, the more I got out of it, the more interested I was in the story. And the second half was so much better. So I'm ending up with a 4-star here, which is wonderful. I was very much interested based on the synopsis of this story. It's a mystery. We know that a bunch of people have died in this club, and we know that this woman, Katie, she had like a bunch of names in the book. It was really cool. Everyone called her something different. Katie has been arrested for this crime, and she was the waitress, or like the server, for the people that got poisoned. And the book is going through a bunch of the men in her lives' perspective of her. I love anything that deals with perspective, so that was the thing I was most interested in. I think the point of views we got was her father. Those were so sweet, and we got a lot of like, again, the psychology of it all always fascinates me. We got a lot of her childhood, how she grew up, some of the things that happened in their family. We also saw her childhood friend, who is sweet, and I had a lot of LOL moments with him. We have her ex-lover, crusty piece of shit, a reporter, and her solicitor, which I think is like a lawyer. So every chapter it bounces between them, and we slowly get to know who Katie reality is, but through other people's point of views. And there are times where you're like, wait a minute, Katie, what were you doing here? It was a very slow pace, so just a warning for those of you that don't like that, but it made it so that by the third act, or maybe even in the fourth quarter, when everything starts getting revealed, even the tiniest little twists, if you can even call them that, felt monumental because like the pace had been so slow, and then suddenly it's like, oh. And if you know me, you know I love to create theories and I love to brainstorm about what's happening. I even like to put in like, well, maybe there's aliens. You can never discount aliens, okay? They're there. But even so, I didn't really quite put this theory together, and I think other people could. I don't read a lot of mystery, so maybe more mystery lovers do, but I was pleasantly surprised by the little twists. Again, they weren't huge, but the pacing of this was good in the fact that I was like, I feel like that never happens. And so this is a great reminder and lesson for me, this book was, that if a book is just alright, just keep reading it. Allie. Next up, we have Private Rites by Julia Armfield, another one I read for Summerween. I love this author's writing. She's one of my favorite authors now, I can definitely say that. I gave Our Wives Under the Sea 5 star. This is like a 7 fucking star book. And then I'm pretty sure last month, time means pretty much nothing to me anymore, but I read this book pretty recently and I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. So honestly, my expectations were pretty high and her writing did not disappoint. The way that this woman writes, she has been blessed by the gods, and I will read anything she puts out. It's just her word choices. She has a very distinct rhythm in the way that she writes, and that's something the nerd in me just fucking eats up. So in terms of writing, this is 6 stars. But the actual story plot, apparently it's like a King Lear retelling, and from some of the comments I've gotten, a pretty loose retelling, or even like you can't almost not even notice it is a retelling. I've never read King Lear, so I definitely didn't pick up on it. The story is following 3 sisters after their estranged father has died. So this talks a lot about grief, and it's talking about a very complicated type of grief because they had a weird relationship, every single one of them, with their father, their mothers. I think the most interesting thing in here was that the youngest sister was their half sister, and to see the relationship between them and how not close they were with each other, that was so interesting. Way more interesting to me than their crusty dad dying. I'm sorry. The ending was, of course, wonderful, and I think I said in my vlog that with Julia's books, it's so slow paced up climb that you don't even realize you've gotten to the top of the hill, and then you look down at the end and you're like, holy fuck. I think this was the slowest paced of all of her books. Again, that's not something I don't like, aka that is something I do like. I don't know why I said it like that, but I just needed a little bit more. I ended up giving this 4.25. I feel so weird talking about this book because I feel like I can't quite articulate why it isn't a 5 star. So I'm sorry I'm doing a bad job with this one, but it is good, so read it. Next up, we have Slew Daddy. This is one I have needed to read for a while. I've had this sitting on my bookshelf for well over a year, probably 2 years. And Abatha, she's an icon. The first half of this and second half are very different, but I like them both. It's funny that in my mind, I'm always like separating my books into sections. Does anyone else do that? I ended up giving this a 4.5 overall though. This is set in the 1600s in Connecticut. It's very much like peak burning witches at the stake sort of time. Our main character Abatha is from somewhere else. Her father sold her basically to a man in Connecticut. Turns out he was actually a real sweetie, and I forgot until this very moment how much I liked him. R.I.P. because he ends up dying. It is in the flap, she is a widow. The flap also tells us that an ancient being is awoken and that the wild folk call him father, aka daddy, and the colonists call him slewfoot and demon. I just find that conversation fascinating, whether something is a god or a demon, and if someone is protecting something from someone else, then based on your stance and your perspective, they could be an enemy or an ally. That is just pretty cool to think about. Anyway, the flap goes on to say that Abatha, recently widowed, again, I didn't spoil that, she's alone and vulnerable, and he, Slew Daddy, is the only one that she can turn to for help. There's a little magic in here. It's very folky. There are these creepy little minion creatures in here. I was not expecting them. There's a villain who's her brother-in-law. He's trying to like get the farm out from under her, and she's fighting with every inch of spirit within her. She's like a girl boss. She's the original girl boss, I tell you. The second half of this book, my stress levels and my disgust with human beings was at an all-time high. There was an entire section that, although I understand why it was in the book because of this time period, it was probably very accurate. It was horrible to read, and I will be skipping over it when I ultimately reread this because it was wonderful. But it was crazy how like chill and happy and like cozy the first half of this book was, and then it's like fucking fuck. What the fuck? And then the last bit, that was wonderful. It was also very stressful and disgusting, but in a fun way, in a very satisfying kind of way. Such a good book, such good illustrations that the author put in here. Some interesting, beautiful, detailed work, OMG. And yeah, if you haven't read this, you absolutely need to, okay? It's your homework. Next up, we have The River Has Roots, another 4.5. This is the author of This Is How You Lose a Time War, which is my favorite book of the year so far. Actually, it's one of the authors. Sorry, there are two in here. And if this was longer, it might be my favorite book of the month. But because of the shortness of it, I think that's the only reason it's a 4.5. I think it could have been a lot longer, honestly. But maybe I'm just selfishly wanting more of her writing. This is a story about two sisters. It's another historical setting, and there is like a fairyland just across from them. This family for generations has been in charge of like singing to the willow trees, and the willow trees somehow control sort of magic coming in. It's a little unexplained, this magic system, but I much prefer that. It makes it feel so mystical and mysterious. And these sisters, they sing like angels, especially together. They have the greatest harmonies, and so I think the trees just really like them. So it's a story about the love they have for each other, but one of the sisters is in love with a fairy. And what else can I tell you, because this is a very short book? When Esther, the oldest sister who is in love with a fairy, rejects a forceful suitor in the favor of a lover from the land of fairy, I feel like I've just said fairy 12 times, not only the sisters bond, but also their lives will be at risk. This was way plottier than I thought it was going to be, and it felt like a true fable. Maybe that's also why it's a 4.5 and not a 5. It felt like there was like a lesson being learned, kind of like in any fairy tale. And I don't love that, but my God, the writing in here is just so gorgeous. Page 1 had my jaw on the floor. It's very playful. It's very almost riddly and tricky, which makes the fairy parts of it even more satisfying because it really... And the type of fairy book this is like a folky, woodsy, cozy kind of thing, but also like you gotta think a little bit with your brain. What else would you think with, Allie? Well, some people think with the... Never mind. Absolutely love this one. Will be rereading it, but not before I reread This Is How You Lose a Time War, because this definitely made me want to read that again. And then we have Hungerstone. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.75. And it's crazy when I think about how steady and like how much is really happening in this story. I ate this up. This is another Carmilla retelling, except the original Carmilla, where is that copy? This is like young adult, pretty much. I think Laura is a teenager. This one, our main character, Lenore, she is an adult and she seems some shit. So she's a lot more hardened and controlled than the Laura in the Carmilla story. But the Carmilla in here, we don't really get too much of her because this is very much in Lenore's point of view and her story just becoming a human. Well, obviously she's human, but becoming a real adult, a real woman, just getting control of her life, but not by controlling everything around her. It's like fully accepting herself. And I love those stories. So we're following her as her and her husband journey to their country home. It's the first time they've been there, and she's in charge of redoing the entire thing, or at least hiring people to do it, being in charge of it, planning this elaborate hunting party for her shitty husband. Oh my God. I think if you liked reading about the relationship dynamics in here, then you might enjoy the relationship dynamics in here. And I say enjoy weirdly because this is a story of a dipshit husband and a doormat wife. And it's endlessly frustrating, but personally, I get so much healing from these stories because I see these women start to accept themselves and start to grow a pair of balls, you know what I mean? And so as depressing as it seems in the beginning, the payoff is so good that that's one of the big reasons I'm reading this so highly. I just will never get enough of those kind of stories. But I was also very entertained by Carmilla and Lenore's relationship in here. And this isn't very romantic, I will warn you. But it was fascinating seeing these two very different types of women interacting. I think the author also did an excellent job detailing this home. It's almost a gothic story more than anything. It's this crumbling country house. I felt like I was inside of it. The atmosphere was excellent. That being said, there wasn't too much of a plot besides our girlie standing up for herself and learning to choose herself over other people, learning more about herself, etc., etc. So I know this probably won't be for everyone, but it was for me. Plus vampires. Okay, next up is Oddbody. This is a short story collection. I am giving 5 stars. This was weird as fuck. And thank God, when something promises to be weird, like you better show up. And boy, did this author show up. These were also deeply depressing at times. That first story, like trigger warning. Some of these were plain disgusting. Some of them were very uncomfortable. Some of them were funny, LOL. Some of them were chill. Some of them were, There's so much in here. I think my favorite story is the first one, which is called Oddbody. It's the titular story. I love the word titular. I'm going to use it any chance I can. And this one surrounds a woman who's in a society where your depression is a separate part of you. It's like a ghost. It's a phantom. So other people can see it, and it's trying to fuck with you. It's trying to make your life harder because it wants you to yourself so that you can become a ghost too. But it's also weirdly lovable. It's like a cat. It's trying to annoy you and knock shit out of your hands, but then it'll come curl up next to you and try to make you feel good. There's like, a few lines in here. The ghost to our main character says some fucked up shit that really like attacked me, but it was just written so well, and I don't think I'll ever not think of this story, especially when I'm going through a depressive episode. I will be avoiding this story though, but to think about those kind of feelings, especially something that's so overwhelming as depression, as an outside sort of entity, it's an interesting concept for sure. I think the weirdest one, let's see. God, they were really all weird, okay? They were like people transforming into things, people laying eggs that had weird things in them, like talking fish babies. I don't even know. So this definitely satisfied my craving for the bizarre, but also the dark, but also the comical. It was touching on all the things I love, especially in a short story. And my favorite type of short stories, we're not getting a full beginning, middle, and end. We're just kind of doing a flyby, a little insight into this character's world and what's going on without really resolving anything. And that, ooh, good job to Rose Keating. Love ya. Also, thank you to Danielle at Simon & Schuster. We love you here. Next 5-star is Cross My Heart. This is my first book for Summerween. This is my library copy. I need to return it so that someone else can read this. I'm sorry. I did buy my own copy so that I can transfer my annotations over because this was just so fun. This is a story about a woman who got a heart transplant. She got someone else's heart. And there's like this app or website where you can communicate anonymously with the family of the donor. Our main character is so sure she knows who donated her heart. She thinks it's this woman whose husband is a famous author in her area. So she becomes obsessed with him, like walking her dog by his house just by accident so she can look into his window, kind of obsessed with him. So she starts talking to him on this app, or I think they end up getting their emails and they start communicating that way. We learn a little bit more about him. And because he's sort of well known, she starts to learn that maybe he might have had something to do with his wife's death. That's all it really tells you, but my God, this was so high energy and fun. A lot of things happen in here. I wasn't thinking we'd go in a certain direction, and then there were so many different like veerings in directions. They weren't fully twists, but it was like jaw-dropping, like, oh, we're going here, okay. And then even in the final like big sort of like reveal or whatever, it didn't ever change tones. It was still very playful, which I'm sure could irritate some people. I fucking ate it up, okay? This is exactly what I want in a thriller. I don't read too many thrillers, but this was fucking delightful. I want a fun time. This was fun. Next up is a reread. So while I can't fully say that if I read this for the first time right now as an adult, I would give it 5 stars. I've reread this Sarah Dessen book, I don't even know how many times back in middle and high school, and I'm giving it 5 stars, okay? The crazy thing is that this has never been my favorite Sarah Dessen story, and as you can see, I'm a pretty huge fan of hers. This one, I don't think I've reread since college, so it's been probably 10 years, and it's always been sort of middle of the list for me. Reading this as an adult fucked me up. In fact, I had planned this month to do a like vlog style wrap up where as soon as I finished the book, like that second, I would turn on the camera and review it so that I could get like very in the moment reviews for you and I wouldn't forget anything and I wouldn't be sitting here for 2 hours talking to a camera. But as soon as I reviewed this and started sobbing on camera, I was like, yeah, no, we can't do this. I need a little separation from my books to talk about them in depth. But I was not expecting the emotions that this would bring out in me as an adult. And so now it is a certified 5-star for me. This story follows Annabelle. It is the start of her junior year of high school. At the end of sophomore year, something happened, and it doesn't tell you what. You do find out in the book, obviously. And the entire summer, she's isolated herself from all of her friends, every single person she knows. And the book kicks off on her first day back to school. She and her best friend have had a bad falling out, and we just follow her dealing with this drama. And we also learn a lot about her family. She kind of has a picture-perfect looking family. They're all models. She and her two sisters, they're like local models. Although one of her sisters ended up getting very successful, but she's been dealing with an eating disorder. And you see how that affects everyone else in the family. And then while I do think this is sort of like general fiction, we're very much focusing on our main character healing and accepting who she is as a human being, much like all the other books I give 5 stars. It's also a romance. She meets a guy at school. He's had a reputation for being like an angry dude. He's gotten in like a fight, so people really avoid him, but he always has headphones in. Also this cover, lol. Also shout out to the Jupiter Library branch, my hometown library, for not arresting me for stealing this, because I've put it to good use and I've taken very good care of this baby, okay? So because our main character is sort of being ostracized in her school, she ends up making friends with this dude named Owen, and we learn more about him, and they have a slow burn romance. And back in the day, I didn't really care about their romance. I just thought it was all right. Now, I just thought it was so cute. I thought this dude was so sweet, and I thought their dynamic, I just bought it so much more as an adult, which is a weird thing to say. You'd think that I would eat it up more as a kid, but I think it's because the romance in here is so steady and so healthy, and I think I was very much wanting something a little bit more toxic back in the day. The reveal of what happens is a little triggering, I will tell you. And it's crazy that I used to reread this as I was going through shit and it wouldn't bother me at all. In fact, I used to love reading things that would trigger me because I felt sort of seen in the moment. I felt like, oh, other people are dealing with this as well. And it was very comforting to me. And now as an adult, it's so weird. Now that I'm like over certain things and I'm very far away from them, it hits me 10 times harder and it's harder to read. And God, there was a quote in here I read on camera. I don't even remember what it is, and I feel like I cried when I read it. I'll just put it in, okay? All I'd ever wanted was to forget, but even when I thought I had, pieces had kept emerging like bits of wood floating up to the surface that only hint at the shipwreck below. Because that is what happens when you try to run from the past. It doesn't just catch up, it overtakes. Oh God! Blotting out the future, the landscape. Oh, I can't. No, sorry. This is the first book in the month. Allie, get it together. So yeah, this fucked me up in a way I very much was not expecting for a book that I've probably read 15 times. Crazy shit. And my favorite book of the month, When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. Wow! I was expecting to love this based on all the comments I was getting during Summerween, but I could not tell you that this would be like my second favorite book of the year so far. So obviously, yes, this is getting 5 stars. I have to check the flap because there's like so many fucking spoilers. If you want to read this book and you haven't, you need to read it immediately before people start spoiling this, okay? Read it right now. Our main character is Jess. She is a waitress, a struggling actress. She finds a 5-year-old outside of her apartment who is like in fear, so she takes him in. It says, after a violent, bloody encounter with the boy's father, she and the little boy find themselves running for their lives. I'm sorry I'm reading this verbatim, but like I really don't want to spoil anything. As they attempt to evade the boy's increasingly desperate father, horrifying incidents of butchery follow them. At first, Jess, and I will say as well as myself, thinks she understands what they're up against, but she's about to learn, as was I, that there's more to these surreal and grisly events than she could have ever imagined. Holy fucking shit. When I tell you I had no idea I had no idea what was coming. I have not ever been that bamboozled in a book, and it was a fucking delight. I can still recall how it felt in my little heart when I realized what the fuck was going on, and that is definitely a huge factor into my rating here. Now that I've read this almost a month ago, the shock of that has died down, and I can't even remember not knowing what this was truly about, but the memory of finding out the twist, oh my God, that will live on in me forever. This is also so wonderful because it taps into so many different type of vibes. We have a very high energy, funny, well, almost quirky, could be annoying to some people energy. It's super fast paced in the beginning, like, oh my God, sweating because so much shit is going on. And then it almost gets cozy. There's like a weird road trip cozy element, found family element. It felt like we were, oh wait, no, that's a spoiler. Sorry, I'm not gonna say that. And then holy shit, did Nat Cassidy come for me? It's so funny because in the vlog, in the middle of the book, I was like, I'm pretty sure Nat Cassidy is a softie and this is gonna be a happily ever after book. I sobbed my eyes out. I had to edit out me literally sobbing near the end of this, and fuck me up it did. This is my first Nat Cassidy book, and I'm a fan for life now, babe. I just called you babe. I'm sorry, Nat. All right, that is it. I cannot believe how many books I read this month. Don't expect me to keep that up because the only reason that happened, I took an entire week off of work, which obviously I can't do every month. I wish. But what a memorable month for so many reasons. Summerween, God. I wish we could have Summerween every month. I cannot wait till next year already. But even after that, I was expecting a little bit of a hangover, and now I'm right back up, baby. I'm dying to devour every single book on my shelf, and I really hope August gives us all very good reads. But I will say July, I think, has gone down this year as the best month of the year. Reading wise, life wise, I just had a fucking blast. And honestly, a lot of it is because of you. Not to get all sentimental, but I had so much fun in the comments with you all this month. So let me know if you have any opinions about these books. What was your favorite book of the month? What was your least favorite? Give me all the details. I'll see you later. Goodbye.